Hey there, are you confused about what is a cell? Like, what exactly is inside a cell? Well, today we'll be talking about the main components of a cell, exactly what is a cell, and a lot more. This is relatively simple. Let's keep watching. The five main organelles of a cell that we'll be talking about are the plasma membrane, the nucleus, ribosomes, cytoplasm, and mitochondria. Those are arguably the most important components in a cell. First up, the cell membrane, or in other words known as the phospholipid bilayer. I know, right? So complicated. There's really not much to it. It just acts as a security guard to the cell. There are two parts to the phospholipid bilayer. The first one is the hydrophilic part, which are the gray balls on the top and on the bottom. Then there's the hydrophobic parts, the yellow squiggles sandwiched in between the gray balls. The hydrophilic part, so let's say there's a polar molecule and it's trying to invade the cell. It will be able to pass through the gray balls because the polar molecule and the hydrophilic gray balls, they will be able to attract it, and the polar molecule will get through. But once it reaches the yellow squiggles, the hydrophobic yellow squiggles will push away the polar molecule, so the polar molecule won't be able to further enter into the cell. And for a nonpolar molecule, the gray balls will just automatically push away the molecules, so they won't even be able to pass through the gray balls. Now, what happens if you're an important molecule and you do want to pass through the cell? Well, then you pass through these big purple jelly bean-like structures called the transport proteins. And other molecules that might be able to pass through the cell membrane are smaller molecules like H2O that make it through the small pores or holes of the membrane, which makes the cell membrane semi-permeable rather than impermeable. Next up, we're going to be talking about the nucleus. Yes, the nucleus. It's the brain of the cell and where the DNA gets stored. The DNA, it cannot leave the nucleus. It never leaves the nucleus. The DNA, it's always stuck as this purple ball inside this nucleus. Another thing to know about the nucleus is that it has a separate layer of membrane, extra protection, all because the DNA. The DNA is so important that it needs two membranes, two layers of security guards to protect it from any invading molecules. Because the DNA is basically codes all your proteins and basically is the blueprint for your body, it needs to be super safe. Third up is cytoplasm. It's this jelly-like liquid where every organelle except the nucleus is suspended in. You see, it's like here and everywhere, just everywhere, except the nucleus. The cytoplasm is important. Think of it as the grounds of your city. It prevents all these organelles in the cell from bumping into each other, and yeah, that's really all there is. We're going back to the DNA. Like we said, the DNA can only stay in the nucleus. It never leaves. So spoiled, right? And it needs two layers of protection. So this is where the ribosomes come in. This is the place for protein making, where the actual DNA, it gets put into use, rather than just staying in the nucleus. This is called DNA transcription translation. So first, the DNA, it transcribes itself. It makes a copy of its own self called the mRNA. Then the DNA, it translates it. The mRNA goes to the ribosomes, and then the ribosomes, it kind of does the actual coding for the protein. So, there's this, it's like the big CEO of a business, and then all the little workers are all these ribosomes. The ribosomes are just these little dots, in this like purple like structure like thing, which actually does all the hard work for the DNA. Now that we've touched upon the cell membrane, the cytoplasm, the nucleus, and the ribosomes, we finally reached our last component, the mitochondria, our fifth and final component. The mitochondria acts as the powerhouse. Now, important thing, it doesn't make energy. It converts energy. It converts energy from food into energy we can use using cellular respiration, which is this chemical reaction that most animals use that releases energy so that the cell can use it. And that's really all there is to the mitochondria. Before we wrap this thing up, I have one more thing to teach you about. There's 2 different types of cells, and the one that we've been talking about only applies for the eukaryotic cells, and those are mostly shown in animals and plants. Now, there's a whole different type of cell. These are called prokaryotic, and it's mostly shown in bacteria. These prokaryotic cells, they have no nucleus membrane, and the DNA, it just floats in the cytoplasm. And it's not really as spoiled as in the eukaryotic cell, but still a little spoiled. And the cytoplasm surrounding the DNA is called the nucleoid. If we look at the diagram, we notice the diagram right here. We notice that the eukaryotic cell is a lot bigger and a lot more complicated than the prokaryotic cell. Because animals and plants are more complicated than bacteria. That's really all there is to what you need to know about the basics of cells. Wait. Before you go, I just want to ask you one tiny favor. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Just by watching this entire video, you have done more than I could ever dream of. Now, if you want to learn more about science in a free, accessible, and hopefully understandable way, don't forget to check out my channel, Relatively Simple. And please, it would be awesome if you liked and subscribed.